So we still don't know when the coronavirus will be a thing of the past, but we do know the post-COVID world will look and feel different. How different? That's the big question. Scott Galloway believes he has answers to that question. He's a professor of marketing at the NYU Stern School of Business. He's also the author of the new book, Post-Corona, From Crisis to Opportunity, an analysis of who stands to win and who's at risk to lose in the post-pandemic world. Scott, welcome. Great to have you with us. Really fascinating read. You know, let's rewind these last 8 or 9 months. You argue in your book that those who stand to win the most are these tech companies, I think specifically Amazon, who you say was sort of poised for a pandemic world. It's almost as if Jeff Bezos had a crystal ball. Do you still think that Amazon is going to be the post-pandemic winner as well?
First off, good to be with you, Tanya. Yeah, if you just look at big tech in general, or as I call it, the four, Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and Google, if you own $100 of their stocks January 1 of this year, 11 months later, record mortalities, a pandemic the likes of which we haven't seen in a century, and you'd be up 54% on the year. And then if you were to disarticulate one of those companies into the biggest winner, it would likely be Amazon, that feels as if, as you referenced, was invented for a pandemic. You have e-commerce, which has gone from 18% of retail to 28%. That's 10 years of acceleration in about 8 weeks. You have people absorbing more and more data and companies trying to deliver products remotely, which has resulted in incredible thirst for bandwidth and processing power. That's AWS. And then what are we going to do over the holidays? We're all going to be watching a lot of streaming video, and that's Amazon Prime Video. So you've never seen a company firing on all 12,000 cylinders the way we're seeing Amazon. I think Amazon has added the value of all European retail just in the last 6 months. Again, they've added the value of European retail just in 6 months.
And is that something that we as American citizens and consumers should worry about, or should we welcome it, on the grounds that Amazon knows us the best, so it's best equipped to supply us with what we need?
I think the answer is yes. I think innovation and the fact that Amazon, you have to give Amazon and Walmart credit for a supply chain that got us our food through this crisis. If you wanted to see real panic, if Amazon and Walmart's food supply chain had shut down, it would have been, this crisis would have taken on a different dimension. The question is, over the long term, when a company becomes this powerful that it begins sucking the oxygen from the room by just threatening to go into an industry, when you have a company that has not paid a lot of taxes but continues to perform infanticide on small companies and prematurely euthanize big companies, should America return to its proud legacy of antitrust and break up these companies to oxygenate the marketplace? And instead of looking at antitrust through the lens that they're bad people that need to be punished, maybe the way we oxygenate the marketplace is just by breaking them up.
And what's your view on that? Do you think that's the best thing to do, to sort of take the different arms of companies like Amazon and these big tech and just make them separate companies?
I think Amazon Fulfillment, AWS. My prediction, Tanya, is that in the year 2025, the most valuable company in the world is going to be a recently spun AWS. What we found with AT&T is when we broke them up into 7 companies, each of those companies was worth more than the original AT&T. This is a fantastic way to oxygenate the economy. And not only in big tech, but big pharma, big ag. We saw the 2 largest book publishers join forces today. We need to go industry by industry and break up these companies and give small and medium-sized companies that tend to be the best job creators in history more oxygen. There's too many spoils going to too few companies. It's time to, again, break these guys up and oxygenate the economy.
Right. No, and it's interesting. You also make the point that when it comes to, the American economy overall, the dirty little secret is that the top 10% of Americans are doing really, really well, while so many others are suffering. You emphasize that this pandemic is something that we shouldn't waste. So what are the opportunities you believe that have emerged during this pandemic that the incoming Biden administration can capitalize going forward to sort of, help all of those people who've been left out of, like you said, the spoils going to the 10%?
Yeah, in a short period, this COVID-19, again, is more of an accelerant than a change agent. We've gone from a dysfunctional economy of income inequality to a dystopian one. If you make over $100,000, no change in unemployment, 60% likelihood you can work from home. If you make less than $40,000, 40% have lost their jobs, and there's less than a 10% chance they can work from home. So in sum, I think our national priorities are reflected in our spending, and the majority of the stimulus here, in my view, has really done nothing but flatten the curve for rich people. And that is, we seem to think it's a tragedy that if restaurants are closed, and we figured out a way to keep restaurants open, but we haven't figured out a way to keep schools open. I think when we look back on this response, we'll say the primary error is, if you will, that we personified companies. And we shouldn't. We should be protecting people, not companies. That stimulus should have gone right into the hands of people such that they can ensure that they're not food insecure, that they can pay the rent, and then let them decide what companies survive. Capitalism on the way up and socialism on the way down is cronyism. We need to protect people, not companies.
You know, it's so interesting because you make the argument that a lot of this PPE, this money went to, business owners who just put that check in the stock market. Had a lot of it gone straight to people who needed it, it would have gone straight into the economy because people who really need the money, as in now, will spend it, right? And so is that the kind of stimulus you would hope to see passed in January?
100%. If you give $10,000 to a household that's food insecure, it immediately goes into the economy. You give $10,000 to a small business owner, you'd like to think that it goes into the company, but the wealthiest cohort in America are small business owners. And so it's no accident that the savings rate last quarter had never been higher, and the stock market just hit new highs. So the question is this money getting to where it not only needs to go, but where it would get the greatest velocity and really help the economy get back on its feet. And like everything I think we've done the last 20 or 30 years, there'll be some well-publicized instances of a cupcake bakery that makes it to the other end. But most of these companies were just building piers, not bridges. And we should be putting the money in the hands of people who need it and then let them decide which restaurants survive. Let them decide which airlines decide. We need to be harsher capitalists on companies, and we need to be more empathetic and generous with people. We've lost the script. We've flipped our priorities upside down here.
Scott Galloway, we could talk to you all day. You've given us a lot to think about. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Tanya.